The one thing that I love that she's bringing to her sport, more people want to watch. More people want to tune in.
When NBA legends start breaking their silence, something serious is happening. For weeks, Caitlin Clark was taking brutal hits on the court, in the media, and across social platforms. Game after game, she was shoved, knocked to the ground, taunted, and through it all, the WNBA stayed silent. No statements, no action, just silence. Fans were outraged. Commentators danced around the issue, and Caitlin, she just kept playing. But eventually, the silence broke. Not from the league, not from analysts, but from the NBA's biggest stars. When players like Steph Curry, LeBron James, Luka Doncic, and Kevin Durant speak, it matters. They don't talk unless they mean it. Their voices carry weight, not just in basketball, but in culture. And this time, they weren't talking about All-Star Weekend or shoe deals. They were speaking directly about Caitlin Clark. What they said was raw, unscripted, and powerful. Some praised her, some ignored her, others sent subtle jabs. But one thing was clear: Caitlin Clark isn't just playing in the WNBA, she's forcing the entire basketball world to react. Steph Curry changed basketball. He turned deep threes into normal shots, made size irrelevant, and redefined what greatness looks like. So when he saw Caitlin Clark being hammered night after night with no one stepping in, he couldn't stay quiet. "I'm sick of watching Caitlin getting attacked," he said. "If the league doesn't step up and protect her, things are going to get ugly real fast." That wasn't just a complaint. It was a warning from the face of the NBA. Curry's voice echoed across leagues, and his support was unwavering. But he didn't stop at calling out the violence. He went deeper. Steph broke down her game like a student of the sport. He talked about her release speed, her confidence, her range. He even said her shot was identical to his. Imagine that. The greatest shooter in NBA history, saying, "She plays like me." He called her a performer. He noticed the court vision, the way she controls pace, the way she feels the floor. That's not surface-level praise. That's Steph Curry seeing something rare: a player, not just emulating his game, but elevating the expectations of her own league. And when Steph makes that comparison, it's not just a compliment, it's a transfer of legacy. LeBron James has seen everything: the spotlight, the backlash, the pressure of carrying a league at 19. So when he watched Caitlin Clark rewrite WNBA history, he didn't stay silent. He celebrated her impact, not just her game, her effect. He pointed out how Caitlin brought in new fans, how she made WNBA games appointment viewing, and most importantly, how she's changed the business. "I saw they had a chartered plane for the first time. That should be celebrated," LeBron said. That one line hit hard. He wasn't just admiring her game, he was recognizing her power. She isn't just a star, she's a cultural movement, and LeBron knows what it's like to carry that weight. That's why his praise felt different. He saw in Caitlin what very few can relate to: being the reason the rules change. And when a king recognizes a queen, the entire world pays attention. Tyrese Halliburton doesn't need highlight reels to sell you on a story, he lives in one. Since arriving in Indianapolis, he has shared the same practice courts, media scrums, and downtown billboards with Caitlin Clark, making his perspective part eyewitness, part co-star. He's watched her finish a morning weight session that flows straight into a children's hospital visit, then bury a 35-footer that night as if fatigue were a myth. In interviews, he calls that routine every day greatness, and it's why he chuckled when a reporter hinted she might be overhyped. Top 5 most famous hoopers on earth, and she still signs every kid's poster. He said, letting the math hang in the air. Halliburton isn't generous with superlatives, he's measured. When he describes Clark studying defensive coverages on an iPad during team flights, the same way Steph once dissected shot charts, who realize his praise is talent reconnaissance, not hometown bias. The subtext is unmistakable. He sees her not as a WNBA phenom, but as an equal architect of Indiana's sports identity, someone whose banner will one day hang across from his in Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Pascal Siakam views the phenomenon from the road, where opposing crowds roar louder for Clark's warm-up threes than for his own pre-game dunks. In Toronto, in Dallas, in random preseason gyms, he hears a high-pitched shriek erupt the second she steps on the hardwood. That sonic data powered his now viral podcast clip. Asked which active player gets the most love, he skipped every NBA MVP candidate and named Caitlin without pausing. After the soundbite went nuclear, Siakam doubled down, citing social metrics. Her follower growth outpaces entire small-market NBA teams. Her jersey ranks in the global top 10, and her signature shoe pre-order numbers dwarf anything that W has seen. That's not hype, that's economy. He told reporters Siakam wasn't handing out compliments. He was delivering a market report. For decades, women's hoops chased validation. With one sentence, Pascal showed it has arrived. When spreadsheet-minded veterans quote engagement numbers, the conversation has shifted from novelty to business reality. Obi Toppin's basketball life is sky-high windmills and fast break sprints. Yet his comments about Caitlin were grounded, almost tender. He spoke of shared joy, how NBA players lean over railings to watch her warm-ups, how they swap clips of her wraparound wraparound passes in team group chats. He recalled meeting her at Summer League and being struck not by celebrity aura, but by how she thanked arena staff by first name. That detail matters to a role player who knows blue collar. Respect keeps locker rooms functional. She treats everybody like their front row, he said, explaining why her arrival feels less like star intrusion and more like family expansion. Toppin even admitted he'd borrowed a footwork drill from her pre-game routine to quick hops into a balanced gather, now part of his own free throw ritual. When a 6'9" dunk champion is stealing micro moves from a 5'10" guard, that's cross-pollination the NBA never expected. Trae Young's connection is more cerebral. He and Clark share membership in an absurdly exclusive club, leading the NCAA in both points and assists for a season. To broadcasters, it's trivia. To Trae, it's sacred fraternity. Off-camera, he's said that stat feels like musical perfect pitch, something you're either born with or you aren't. So when he volunteers to face her in a three-point shootout, it isn't marketing bravado, it's a duet invitation. Young already trades DMIs with Clark about release point biomechanics, joking her hop-step rhythm reminds me of my 2018 self before I added ankle weights. His admiration bleeds into strategic curiosity. How does she angle her hips to disguise launch points? Can her left-hand skip pass translate to the NBA ball's heavier feel? Fans hear friendly banter. Hoop scientists hear cross-league collaboration. By publicly preparing for the possibility she might beat him, Young does what few NBA scorers dare, shrinking ego to elevate the experiment. In that humility lies an endorsement louder than any hashtag. Luka Doncic rarely wastes words, yet every syllable lands like a step-back three. When a reporter lobbed the softball, favorite women's player right now, he didn't blink. Caitlin Clark. No caveats, no qualifiers. He could have padded the answer with diplomacy, but Luka's game is built on direct lines from thought to action. And then came the barb that hit harder than any highlight. Paige is okay, but I haven't seen her in the WNBA. That wasn't shade. It was a measuring stick. In Luka's world, greatness is earned in real-time battles, not projected from college mixtapes. He knows what it means to dominate Europe at 16 and still have skeptics. That's why he values deliver now proof more than hype, later potential. Each night he watches Caitlin absorb hits that would rattle most rookies, shake off trash, talk, and still rip logo threes with an unbothered shrug. To Luka, that's the language of superstar demand. It needs no translation. Paul George, meanwhile, offered the most layered take of any NBA voice. PG-13 has lived the full arc: small market, anonymity, gruesome injury, superstar scrutiny. So when he looked at Caitlin's whirlwind ascension, he zoomed out. He reminded fans that WNBA veterans spent decades grinding in half-empty arenas, stretching per diem dollars, and boarding 5 a.m. commercial flights. They built a fragile ecosystem by sheer will. Then, almost overnight, Caitlin generated ratings unlocked, charter jets, primetime windows, and billion-view TikTok clips. That whiplash is exhilarating, but also disorienting for those who paved the road. George didn't fault the vets for feeling territorial. He simply explained the human math of investment versus reward. By putting numbers and emotions in the same sentence, he reframed the conversation. This isn't just about whether Caitlin deserves the spotlight she does. It's also about how leagues honor the shoulders she stands on while rocketing toward a richer future. Silence can applaud, silence can condemn. In the social media era, where every hot take becomes currency, choosing not to speak is itself a headline. Jason Tatum's Nan answer did exactly that. Ask the most predictable question: who's your favorite W player? He bypassed the obvious cultural phenomenon lighting up every sports feed and defaulted to the safe, established choice: Asia Wilson. Full stop. No elaboration, no acknowledgement of Caitlin's seismic impact on jersey sales, TV ratings, or the next generation of hoopers. For a player whose own resume is built on transcending expectations, the omission felt less like innocent oversight and more like a quiet protest and unwillingness to ride the wave everyone else was surfing. In a vacuum, picking Wilson is perfectly respectable. Placed beside the Clark tidal wave, it reads as resistance. Kevin Durant's answer landed like a controlled detonation. KD's opinions have the reach of breaking news. He knows it, and he wields that influence with surgical precision. So when he dropped Angel Reese as his favorite female athlete, it was impossible to ignore the context. Reese and Clark are framed as rivals and endless debate, shows competitive narratives that spike engagement but often spill into toxic fandom wars. By elevating Reese without mentioning Clark, Durant wasn't merely expressing preference, he was poking the culture. It's the same calculated tension he's embraced throughout his career, from burner account battles to franchise-shifting free agency decisions. In one name, Durant managed to highlight a legitimate star, critique media herd mentality, and implicitly question whether the Clark hype machine leaves enough oxygen for other stories. The shot wasn't at Caitlin's game, it was at the uncontested narrative around her, and that nuance sparked 1,000 think pieces. Reactions are mirrors. They reveal as much about the speaker as the subject. Steph's torch passing awe, LeBron's legacy lens, Luka's performance first standard, and Durant's disruptive selectivity each carve grooves in the cultural map. Together, they signal a watershed, that moment when a women's athlete stops being siloed and starts being debated in the same breath as NBA headline acts. For decades, the WNBA fought for mere acknowledgement. Now its brightest star commands endorsement deals, midnight debates, and cross-league loyalty tests. That's more than progress, it's a paradigm paradigm shift. And paradigm shifts are messy. Elevating one player forces institutions to confront pay gaps, media allocation, and marketing complacency. It compels veterans to reconcile pride in the league's growth with frustration that the spotlight arrived after their prime. It presses male superstars to examine their megaphones. Are they amplifying the evolution or standing in its way? Every cheer, every shrug, every subtle shade folds into the ledger that will decide how fast the sport scales from moment to movement. Caitlin Clark's impact isn't judged solely by points or assists. It's measured in policy changes, sponsorship, bids, and the uncomfortable but necessary conversations now happening in front offices and barbershops alike. If greatness provokes reaction, then the current cacophony proves her status beyond doubt. Applause and pushback live on the same timeline, and together they testify that women's hoops has reached a cultural tipping point, one that will either accelerate equity or expose who never truly wanted it. The ball, as always, is in the league's hands, and the clock is already ticking toward the next viral Clark moment that will make the silence impossible to maintain. This isn't a trend. This isn't a flash in the pan. This is the start of a legacy. Caitlin Clark is redefining what it means to be a star in women's sports. She's drawing crowds that rival NBA games. She's earned praise and criticism, usually reserved for icons. She's doing the impossible and making it look normal. And the scariest part, she's just getting started. In 5 years, today's highlight reels will feel like the first chapter of a revolution that reaches far beyond basketball arenas. Grade school hoopers already imitate her logo range release in driveways. Television networks scramble to move primetime slots because she bends the ratings curve, and global brands line up to hitch their names to her momentum. Broadcasters are quietly rewriting ad rate cards. Ticket brokers are bracing for record demand, and the next WNBA collective bargaining battle will cite her name as proof that equal investment pays dividends. So bookmark this moment, because from now on, every record, every broadcast deal, every debate about respect and revenue will be measured against the standard. Caitlin Clark just set in the bar will only rise from here.